Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Jim and Frank's Thursday Throwdown!
Jim, it's another Thursday.
Another Thursday throwdown with a guest star.
Another guest star, too. Go ahead. Give us an introduction, Jim.
Yeah, well, tonight we got Richie Boom Boom Mendez with us. Another Lancer. Charter Oak in the house.
And I'm actually gonna rename myself because has my work name on there, but
okay.
I will do that, and then that way,
There we go.
better.
Very good.
Yes, a Lancer for kind of a short time, I guess. I kind of ditched out. I was class of '83, and I ditched out in '82. I discovered the love of money and the non-effective school for me, so kind of just went that route, took a GED, and really, I don't surprisingly passed. So I don't know.
Hey.
Probably the tail end of a generation that could do that and still
Yeah.
make a living.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so I know Rich from Glimmer Stars, but he's also been in like a host of other bands. I've got one of his records from the Pushers.
Oh yeah, yeah. Nope.
It's going back
Really,
a ways.
really fine
What-
stint there with those guys, and we're all still friends today. And actually, I had Rob, the guitar player, come. He was over here the other night, laying down a guitar track for me. I'm
Oh, cool.
in the process of doing like this kind of cover record with a bunch of obscure, good fun songs, So he did a cover. We're doing a cover of Teenage Kicks. So he's
Oh, nice.
yeah. So it's coming along pretty nice.
If you know, you know.
Yeah.
So how many bands are you in currently, Rich?
That's a weird thing. So, well, I mean, playing bands, obviously Glimmer Stars.
Sure.
And then I've been in this band called the Hellflowers for a couple of years now, and that kind of fell in my lap and some good opportunities and stuff. So those guys, we play, and then I'm just in a couple different projects that aren't really live bands. I was in this band called Foxy for the longest time, and still technically am, and like they never really went away. But we just released a record. It'll be on Rumbar out on May 16th. But
Oh, cool.
as far as playing live, it's really kind of existent. The bass player, he was the Damned for 10 years, Stu West. So he lives in London, and when we would go tour with them, we just pick him up on the way, and we do shows over there. But locally, nothing really. Maybe a one-off here and there, but haven't played. And that record kind of came during the pandemic, like really nothing to do. I kind of picked up guitar and started writing some songs, and thought, well, who's going to do these? And my brother's super talented, so I'm like, I'm not going to give him 10 songs and go, here, dude, do these. And he just flipped me off, basically. But so it just kind of fell in. I'm like, maybe Foxy will do them, It's kind of pop punk stuff. So it really fun project to deal with. So it was fun.
Yeah, you're quite the journeyman, sir.
However, my wife says it's too much on my plate, that I need to really kind of figure it out.
Well, we always let our guest introduce the records because they pick the records. So, Rich, which band are we doing, and which album's by that band?
All right. So, when I had reached out to Frank, because I was jealous that you had my brother on, and so I'm like, I want to be included in that UFO session. I was around,
Yep.
So the band I picked, and it was like my all-time favorite band, is Blondie. Obviously, I got a Blondie shirt on.
All right.
Heck yeah.
And the two records, obviously, are it's going to be Parallel Lines and Eat to the Beat.
Beat to the beat.
Speaking of pop punk and everything else.
Yeah, and as far as you guys put me on the spot, as far as like pick one, and I've had since we've talked, I've had a couple weeks to think about it, and I'm like, I don't know, like maybe we'll figure it out by the end of this program.
A lot of times this just ends up being a feeling for the day, for the moment, because especially like this, two great records. And Jim and I were talking a little earlier. These are two records that just blew up.
Yeah, and almost in a different way. And kind of before coming on here, I was thinking, well, what am I going to say? And to me, there's like a little backstory of all this, how this kind of, my first encounter with parallel lines. And, I don't know, we can get into that on how that kind of developed, and you just lead me the way and I'll kind of explain it.
Well, did you fall onto Blondie? Did you discover them during this time or from the beginning of their career?
No, then that's the thing. So it would started with parallel lines. And Jim, I don't know, did you ever go to Sunflower Junior
I
High?
was at Sunflower, yeah.
Yeah, so it stemmed from there. I'm 13 years old, and I would walk home, which I lived, basically in a little bit west of Sunflower. And one of my good friends at the time, so his house was right on the corner, and we would just walk and 13 years old, and I would hang out at his house for a couple hours, and I remember distinctly, pretty much in mind, he had 4 records, maybe, probably more, but Parallel Lines was one. He had the Cars Candy-O, and then he had the Who. I think it was the Bob O'Reilly, or the one where they're kind of sitting on the chair and all that. The name kind of kind of escapes me. I can remember that one. And then what else did he have? He had, man, I don't know the fourth. But at any rate, we go to his room, kind of hang out, and we're not getting into trouble or anything. He's like, and he's an inspired guitar player, and he was a Japanese guy, so he's like, I just want to, rock, and he's like, I got this record, and he pulled it out, and it's like the cover is just striking right away. You're like, what the hell is this?
Amazing cover on that record.
Yeah, and being 13,
Fantastic,
focused in on Deborah Harry, like,
Debbie Harry.
oh man,
Right in the middle.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm just infatuated with it. He puts it on, and
Real quickly, Richie,
yeah.
did you think her name was Blondie before you got into who was in the band?
No, I don't think I would. No, I didn't. Obviously, we would read the stuff, and that's who that was. It wasn't like, hey, who's Jethro Tull, or who's who's Jay Giles, which there is a Jay Giles, but
There was a big campaign by the record company. Blondie is a group. That Buttons made up. Blondie is a group because everybody thought Blondie was Deborah Harry.
Yeah, or Debbie Harry was Blondie.
yeah, I mean, obviously that was the big marketing scheme afterwards. When you start going solo and people get offended and stuff like that.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, putting those songs on, we would listen to both sides constantly,
Right.
and it kind of opened a whole new door of just different music. Then we put on, Candy-O by the Cars, and like, okay, that's cool. And then, we were all big Who fans, so it's like, yeah, let's get the power, So then, and I don't even think I was really playing drums then. I was maybe kind of thought, hey, I'll play, And I think my brother might have started, like, they were going to do some garage stuff, so it was always kind of there that we were going to play. But at that point, I come home, and my he's in high school already, so he introduced the whole genre of other kind of music. He would come in, and I think I'm like, hey, check this out. No, we're this is Sex Pistols. This is and then I don't know if you're, Jim, familiar with the Rawls brothers. They lived across the street from us.
Yep.
So
Both
that
are,
was
as a matter of fact.
yeah, so Bill, hey man, I got the new debut Ozzy Osbourne, solo record, and it's like, oh man, that blew my mind. Listen to all that, the Blizzard of Oz, like, holy crap.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, my brother would come home with a lot of, he's very pop now, but at that point, it wasn't a whole lot of pop stuff he brought. I mean, he had some things, I think the coolest thing he had was he had this Joe Jackson like single box that had like maybe 10 singles or 5, and it would lay out into the album cover, I'm the Man.
I'm the Man,
and it was awesome. And he would, he brought home the Sex Pistols, obviously Thin Lizzy, UFO, the Dead Boys stuff, and some of that stuff I was kind of like, oh, I'm not gonna listen. That's crazy, look at the covers and stuff. And then of course my dad, he was a huge jazz guy, so he had this like elaborate stereo system that he would put jazz on only. Don't touch my stereo system. I don't want that crap on my record player. But yeah, that album just the Parallel Lines just blew me away. And then like Frank, like you said, I wasn't aware of the early stuff before then. Then we kind of started doing that, looking at the people on it, and and distinctly, I'm a huge Clem Burke fan, obviously, but looking at that album cover, I mean, that was what was cool back in the day. I mean, you physically had records that you could take the sleeve out, you can read stuff, you can flip it around, and looking at Clem Burke's shoes, he had the one red Converse and the one white. I'm like, this is amazing. These guys are cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's basically kind of where it started.
This was a record that had 12 songs on it.
Yeah.
And between here and the UK, 6 of those songs became singles.
Yeah.
That's how strong of a record it was.
Yeah.
I think it was platinum here in the United States. It wasn't a major seller over time, but
put them on the map.
Certainly put them on the map. Yeah.
Yeah. And like the stories of hanging on the telephone, by the Nerves, are like, you got to do this song. And they're basically on a plane heading over to Europe. And then I heard it and like, you'll see, Heart of Glass was an older song they had that they didn't, think that had any value in it and stuff. And I was going to ask you guys, like, I don't kind of remember when videos came about. I know MTV was like 1980, right? So I must have seen these, like the Heart of Glass video somewhere. I don't know who would play it. It would have meant, like the Midnight Special or something.
You had stuff like Don Kirshner's and different things, and they were doing very raw videos.
Yeah.
I remember it was not Super 8, but it was video style where it was super clear.
Yeah.
And very cheap looking.
Yeah.
But yet it fit what the songs were all about.
Yeah, I don't remember what the TV show I saw was, but I could remember being in high school. It was like pre-MTV, and they said like, oh, and tonight we're going to have David Bowie. But it wasn't David Bowie. They showed like 3 videos from The Lodger.
Yeah.
I was like, well, this is not David Bowie. I mean, it's David Bowie singing, and it's
I don't
kind of ahead of his time a little bit on the promotional videos. So
yeah, and I mean, who was making them back then? Like now, it's you don't have a video, you're useless, kind of, But
there were a few things like that. I remember seeing Thin Lizzy, and they said like, oh, on tonight's guest, and Thin Lizzy was going to be on, but it was a video for Waiting for an Alibi, right? But it wasn't playing live. I was like, why are we getting movies? Like,
to do that.
But even to that state, like you can go back now on YouTube and look up like the Midnight Special, and then so many like rad bands that were playing live. I mean, I was probably too young to even stay up that late, or I don't even know where that station was on, till after the fact, where you kind of, you can go back and look at that stuff. But what a time, I mean, all these just cool 70s bands,
Yeah.
Mike Chapman was their producer on both these records.
Yeah.
And when you go back and listen to them now, what fantastic sounds.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Just driving. You mentioned Clem Burke and those drums. When we talk about Eat to the Beat and Dreaming, holy cow.
Oh, 100%. And I mean, I read a lot of books and stuff with, about Blondie and this and that, and they struggled on that Parallel Lines album working with Chapman.
Yeah.
They didn't, I mean, it was kind of put on them, but he took them to the next level as far as like, do it over again. And at that time, I think I was reading where, that between those 2 records, they kind of started diving into some drugs and cocaine and stuff, and they were just kind of partying in the studio, and he wouldn't have it. Like, get back on your drum set, or just hit this kick pattern 400 times. And they were disgruntled with him.
Well, they had that punk mentality.
Yeah.
And especially the New York scene and everything that was going on. So they had that edge to them. And then you throw in a workhorse like that to produce them. Yeah, they're actually lucky that they got the work out, right?
And I think, I think that album, was the one that almost kind of like the Thin Lizzy story. Well, you have 2 records out that haven't really done anything. you know, we're going to, as a label, going to drop you. You got to put something out that's going to be meaningful, and
Right.
bam, what a home run, you know?
Well, it's weird. Like just before you got on, Frank and I were talking, and I said, like, you know, Parallel Lines was their third album, but nowadays a band wouldn't even get to their third album if they didn't have a hit
Yeah.
song, because the label would just be like, yeah, you're done.
Yeah, you're done. Yeah.
Or they would implode themselves.
Or they would implode themselves. Sure.
Yeah.
It gets frustrating when you don't have a hit. So let me ask you this question though, Rich, since we're talking about Mike Chapman, Parallel Lines. I think for me, that album is a big step up from Plastic Letters.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I truly defined kind of, you know, what they were meant to do. You know, besides the you know, small clubs, the kind of punk atmosphere and stuff like that. I mean, it still had its edge, but that, yeah, I mean, night and day.
Yeah.
So all that Mike Chapman workhorse mentality paid off. I mean,
Oh yeah,
much
yeah.
as you complain about it when you're going through it, I think, you know, for the better for them. I mean, they became a household name.
Yeah, for sure. And it, like Frank said, that record today, if you put it on, you know, I mean, when we kind of started talking about this, I was driving, my son lives in Connecticut now, so we were driving his car back, and I put both those albums on, and I'm like, it's so good. Like, still kind of brought all those memories back to being in that guy's, you know, bedroom listening to after school, you know?
Sure.
And the songs, for the most part, hold up really well.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I say, anytime you go back all the way to the 70s, some things are going to be misplaced because of lyrics or whatever, but these are timeless, both records.
Yeah,
my
and like, you
youngest
know,
daughter still listens to this stuff. She's 15.
Yeah, I mean, you hear it on the radio and you're like, you're bopping your head, you know?
Right.
And even, you know, obviously they've done their time with the, you know, kind of the other singles of Call Me and all that stuff, and it commercially kind of got washed, and then, you know, back with the Maria song, and then even now, like I can hear it, but I'm still like, you know, and that's probably on me not giving it a chance, because it's like, really can't do better than those two records, you know.
Right.
Might have a couple songs here and there, but, you know, for a record to play front to back with everything pretty much solid, it's hard to do.
Right.
Rich, you have a favorite song on Parallel Lines?
God, you know, like listening to those again, like I really liked it's either 11:59 or Picture This, you know. And you know, and obviously that, you know, One Way, and Hang On to the Telephone is just really good to me, and
Classic, sure.
but yeah, Picture This, just her kind of vocal therapy on it and telling that story, you know, and stuff, and it just, you can envision it, you know.
Yeah, that was a song that I had kind of forgotten about, and then on the re-listen,
Yeah,
what a great revisit. I was like, oh man, I completely forgot about this song, because you don't hear it. It's not something that still gets played.
yeah, and I actually got a
Great tune.
pull up this song list, and I think even the other one is there's now I'm looking at the list. It's like Fade Away and Radiate was always classic, and then I Know But I Don't Know is, you know, that duo with Frank and Fonte doing the double line on it is really cool.
And for them to put another album out the next year, right? That back then bands did that. Sometimes
Every
two
year.
albums in 1 year.
Yeah, yeah,
This was 70, 78, and then boom, 79 rolls around and Eat to the Beat shows up. And they picked up right where they left off.
yeah.
I like it. I don't think it's as strong as a complete album as Parallel Lines.
Yeah, and it was a little more aggressive, you know. I mean, it kind of got more a little more punky, kind of, you know, with those songs. You know, but I think trying to choose these two, like the big thing for me was, like, now I could see videos more and more, and you know, like the first time I saw Union City Blue, and you know, like
Right.
I was a big fan of Clem Burke, and to see him on that like ship or whatever there are in the, you know, in the bay and stuff like that, and it's like, man, this is super cool. And then even his drumming, because at that point I'm like, she's great, but now I'm just like focused on the drumming aspect of it.
Right.
And his playing is so incredible from on that album. I mean, Parallel Lines is classic. It's pretty straightforward, but you go to Dreamin', you go to Accidents Will Never Happen, and and to watch him on a video play it, it's like, oh my God, this guy's
He's all over the place.
he's his own person now.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
He's become the Keith Moon of
Yeah.
I was
the
just going to
band.
mention that he takes on that persona almost of reminds you of a Keith Moon, as wild as he is, but yet keeps in time.
Yeah, yeah. And
Unbelievable.
even to this day, like, you'll see comments of like, people go watch him play. I mean, obviously Deborah Harry's the thing, but Klimberg's the drummer of Blondie. I don't think anybody can really replace the guy,
Nope.
and just that kind of iconic, like figure,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Speaking of video, I mean, I had heard, one way or another, Heart of Glass, I thought like, oh, they got kind of disco on this.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So I was really kind of on the fence, but when I saw that Dreaming video, holy
Oh,
Yeah.
I was in.
Like I said before, his drumming on that, just bombastic.
yeah. And it's like, I'm like, this is, obviously it's not live there, it's the song, but just the whole vibe of the video of people just, it's like they're in a club, and I remember watching that and just recently and on YouTube, and there was a comment that stuck out, and the person had said, he's like, if you watch Deborah Harry at like a minute 12 in or something like that, there's a line where she says something about debutante, like, but she flips her hair like this weird Marilyn Monroe, and it just a little subtle stuff that just makes him so cool, and obviously Clem just sweaty and going off and going nuts, the video is just, it's insane.
And maybe it's just me, and maybe my memory is not working correctly, but it seems to me I always remember Chris Stein always looking so uninterested in the whole thing. Right?
He's just not
No,
happy
you haven't lost your mind. That's totally 100% true. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they all kind of looked really,
Bored with the whole thing, right?
yeah, keyboard wise, and Frank and Fonny just kind of standing there, and I mean, yeah, they look like kind of like, I don't,
It's an obligation here, right?
yeah, they weren't your ace freely or anything.
Did you get to see Blondie live?
I've seen them once, and that's another thing. So, being that young, and what sucks now is like you kind of watch all these documentaries on them, and they're at the Roxy for 3 nights or at the Whiskey.
Right.
I'm like, obviously I was 15, I probably couldn't have gone, but
Right.
to know that they were doing these club dates like that, Troubadour or something, and playing with these other bands, it's like, oh, what a time to be alive,
Yeah, I want to say the Whiskey was 21 at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I when they released the song album with Maria on it and stuff, we went and saw them, and that was kind of almost the same lineup. I think they didn't have the bass player and the guitar player at that time. They kind of parted ways, but it was pretty awesome. Everything was pretty tight,
To be honest, I like that song. I think it's a great single.
Oh, it's a great song. Yeah. It definitely is a really, really, really good song.
Right. And then also on there, another single, The Hardest Part. Talk about making a left turn after all this other stuff, right? And
yeah.
Great tune.
Yep.
Great lyrics, interesting lyrics. Great video, you see Deborah Harry with red hair and you're like, okay,
That works too.
Yeah.
They 4 singles off that album, off of Eat the Beat, and the Atomic came out, and I think that was a UK single, but still 4 singles. And this is something, again, they had a knack for doing. They were riding that wave and putting these singles out, and with 1979 and Studio 54 and all this other stuff going on, they fell right into it.
Yeah, and very different songs, if you will, like Atomic. I mean,
right.
just kind of out of left field, and then, obviously you kind of go further down that record thing where the tide is high, and that's a whole other door that introduces kind of freestyle rap and reggae and stuff. So
Reggae,
yeah, they're very, but for me, like that song, I would go back to the records. Like and that's, you start hearing the early stuff, like Ex Offender and all that stuff, and Denise, and then you're just like, that's really cool. But
yeah.
and actually short-lived, so to speak, until their comeback. But I think that was a span of over maybe 4-5 years they were together, and then I think Chris Stein got sick and all that kind of stuff happened.
Yeah,
And
that's right. All right. Well, Richie, I tell you what, if you had to pick just one of these records, what are you going with?
see, it's tough. So it's sentimental reasons. I would choose Parallel Lines,
Okay.
just because that's my first introduction to that. Musician-wise, being a Clem Burke fan, each of the beat, his playing is phenomenal on that. So I was really struggling with this the past couple of days. It's like I feel like I'm cheating on one or the other, But I think I would definitely have to go with Parallel Lines.
Okay.
As clean as that record is, as solid and heartfelt, like the way those guys played,
Right.
And nothing to take away from Each of the Beat, but
No. I'm there with you. I like Parallel Lines a smidge better, and I think it's overall the totality of the album.
yeah,
It flows better for me,
yeah,
and I love those tunes. Like I said, Jim was talking about the re-listen. I jumped on there, and I'm like, oh, I remember this song. Oh, I remember this song. Every single song.
yeah.
And I had it on cassette at one time, and that's why they all sound familiar for a reason. I probably wore that thing out.
Yeah, yeah.
I can believe it.
Yep. Now, Jim, what about you? You could give us one.
Well, Dreaming and Union City Blue are probably my all-time two favorite
And
Blondie songs.
Right.
But I think I got to go Parallel Lines. I think it's
Yeah,
just a better package.
and I love you for that, Jim, because like I was just kind of looking at the song list too, and I'm like, did I make the wrong choice? But like, Need to Be that there's that song Shayla. I don't know if you remember it or heard it, but
Yes.
it's just so
Another one that I'd totally forgotten about, and
Yeah.
lyrically just fantastic.
exactly, and I'm like, God, I don't know, can we combine those records?
Great
Well,
double
that
album,
whole
right?
first side. So you got Dreaming, Hardest Part,
Yeah.
Union City Blue,
Yeah.
Shayla, Eat to the Beat.
Oh yeah.
I mean, just that's like 5 great songs right in a row.
Yeah.
Just fantastic stuff.
Yeah, and and even getting in further where like I said, videos were more involved. Like just watching, if you go back and watch YouTube, the the Eat to Beat record videos, like all the videos are great. Like
Yeah.
they're amazing.
I'm gonna talk myself out of Parallel Lines here in a second.
Well, if you're going, I might have, I might do the Titanic and stay on
Sink the ship here.
Yeah.
I'll stick with Parallel Lines. I think
All right.
I think as a package, maybe just a little tighter.
Well, all right. It looks like we've got ourselves a knockout any way you slice it. We're going to go with Parallel Lines all the way around. And that is not to disparage Eat to the Beat at all. And like I said, if we had the same conversation tomorrow, we might come up with a whole
Might be different.
story.
Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
for sure.
And Richie, thanks for picking these 2 great albums, 1 great band, and it was the band that was intact. It was the lineup that we all know and love.
Yeah.
So,
Solid unit.
yeah. Oh man, Jim, you have any parting things to say before we get out of here?
Just thanks for joining us tonight, Rich. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for having me.
Going
Yeah,
down a little memory lane here with
yeah.
Yep.
Hopefully I didn't pressure you into inviting me. I know. I
we
tell my
appreciate
brother,
it.
like, I got to get on that show.
we love having people on, man.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
awesome.
All right, Richie, thank you so much for coming on. Real quickly, why don't you introduce your song, and we're going to play that out, and it won't be on the YouTube because we get these copyright strikes all the
Yeah.
time. But Facebook, stick around, give this song a listen. You're going to love it. Tell us about it, Rich, real quick.
Well, this was a kind of a dream project for me. and all my friends kind of getting to record on this. So this is like the first one out of the gate. We did Hanging on the Telephone by the Blondie cover. And really no name for the project. I think right now we're just calling it Boom Boom and Friends. But this is Christina Jean singing on it, and Stu West, an old bass player from The Damned, is playing bass, and Jerry Andrews on some other instruments and producing and mixing. So yeah, we just had fun with it, and it's kind of down memory lane. But hope you guys enjoy it.
All right. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Yeah.
Jim,
Awesome.
anything else?
See you next week.
That's right.